Hi everybody, Johnny here. Hope you're doing great today. If you want to find more math, go to my math page, jmathpage.com. Today we're going to be thinking about multiplying by twos. Now, sometimes we'll see some multiplication table set out something like this. So we might see 1 times 2, 2 times 2, 3 times 2, 4 times 2, 5 times 2, 6 times 2, 7 times 2, 8 times 2, 9 times 2, and 10 times 2. That's all fine. It seems a little boring, and I know you think you have to memorize all these, but let's make it a little bit more interesting than that. Okay? There's lots of patterns here that we can use to figure out our multiplication and understand our multiples of 2. So today we're going to be thinking about multiplying by 2s in terms of arrays. Now an array is a way of organizing things so you can see them in terms of rows and columns. So let's try this out. First off, I want to have, since everything's about 2s, I want to have 2 lines. 1, 2. Okay, and we'll say this is the first, this is the second, and these are, we'll call them our rows. Okay? Now, I want to make an array, I need to make an arrangement so I can see them in the opposite direction too. So these are horizontal, and they're rows. Let's go ahead and make some columns, and we'll make them vertical. So let's go ahead. We should make how many? I think we should make 10. Let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So up here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we'll call these the columns. In arrays, it's useful to think of things in terms of rows and columns. So we have 2 rows and we have 10 columns. Well, how does that help us to understand how to do these multiplication problems? Well, let's think about the intersections that happen along the way. So, when I have one column, and I have 2 rows, 1, 2, 1 column, 2 rows, how many intersections do I have? Well, if I look here, 1 column and 2 rows, I end up with 2 intersections. That's good. Now, what if I have 2 columns? This column and this column, and I still have 2 rows, this row and this row. 2 columns and 2 rows give us this many intersections. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So far we have 2, now 4 intersections. Let's keep going. Now I think about 3 columns and 2 rows. 1, 2, 3 columns and 2 rows. How many intersections? Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. 6 intersections. 4 columns and 2 rows. 4 columns, 2 rows. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 intersections. What about 5 columns and 2 rows? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 2 rows. I'll add these to our total so far, and we have how many intersections? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what I'm noticing right now is that as I count the number of columns, and when I'm multiplying by 2, I'm doubling the number of columns. So 5, and 5 more make 10. That will help me think about multiplying by 2s much easier. Let's continue. 6 columns and 2 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2 rows will give us 10 and 11 and 12. So I'm counting on now. Let's continue. 7 columns and 2 rows. 7 columns, 2 rows, some more intersections. I had 12 intersections before. Now I add 1, 2 more, and now I have 14. 8 columns and 2 rows. 8 columns, 2 rows. And I had 14 before. Now I have 15 and 16. Continue. 9 columns and 2 rows. 9 columns, 2 rows. If I had 16 before, now I have 17 and 18. 18 intersections altogether. The last one, 10 rows and 2 columns. 10 columns and 2 rows. 10 columns and 2 rows. Knowing that we had 18 before, now we have 19 and 20 altogether. So if we look at this, we can see that our multiples of 2 by columns go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20. We can also see that whenever we want to know what any of these facts are in the 2's, we can say, well, how many columns are there? 7. How many rows? 2. 7 rows, 2 columns gives us 14. Let's use that to help us fill out our table here. So, if I look at 1 times 2, I can say that that equals 1 column, 2 rows gives us 2. If I look at 2 columns and 2 rows, or 2 times 2, I know that that equals 4. 3 columns and 2 rows, 3 columns, 2 rows gives us 6. 4 columns and 2 rows, 4 columns, 2 rows gives us 8. 5 columns and 2 rows, 5 columns, 2 rows gives us 10. 6 columns, 2 rows, 6 columns, 2 rows gives us 12. 7 columns and 2 rows, 7 columns, 2 rows gives us 14. 8 columns and 2 rows, 8 columns, 2 rows gives us 16. 9 columns and 2 rows, 9 columns, 2 rows gives us 18. 10 columns and 2 rows, 10 columns, 2 rows gives us 20. Now, this is one good way for us to think about multiplying. We can think about multiplication in terms of arrays, in terms of columns and rows. We can do this with blocks, or we can always do this with lines. If it were the 3's tables, we just have 3 rows. If it were the 4's tables, we could have 4 rows. And the other thing is, we could switch the columns and the rows differently. We could start with 2 columns, and then make lots and lots of rows. Either way will work. Now I have a little task for you. I'm going to take away all of these results over here, and what I want you to do is think about them for yourself, all right? And I'm going to ask you each one, and I want you to look at the array that we've made and think about how that can help you to understand the 2's tables, or the multiples of 2, all right? So, take a look. 1 times 2 equals, what do you find? 2 times 2 equals, 3 times 2 equals, 4 times 2 equals 5 times 2 equals 6 times 2 equals 7 times 2 equals 8 times 2 equals 9 times 2 equals, and 10 times 2 equals. Now I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to ask you these out of order. So it's easy enough to do them in order, but let's try doing them out of order. Are you ready? 5 times 2 equals 7 times 2 equals 3 times 2 equals 8 times 2 equals 2 times 2 equals 4 times 2 equals 6 times 2 equals 10 times 2 equals, and I saved the easiest one for last. Do you know which one I left out? 1 times 2 equals. Now let's check to see what we've done. 1 times 2 equals 1 column, 2 rows makes 2. 2 times 2 equals 2 columns, 2 rows makes 4. 3 times 2 equals 3 columns, 2 rows makes 6. 4 times 2 equals 4 columns, 2 rows makes 8. 5 times 2 equals 5 columns, 2 rows makes 10. 6 times 2 equals 6 columns, 2 rows makes 12. 7 times 2 equals 7 columns, 2 rows makes 14. 8 times 2 equals 8 columns, 2 rows makes 16. 9 times 2 equals 9 columns, 2 rows makes 18. 10 times 2 equals 10 columns, 2 rows makes 20. Well, we did good work today. We found out that making an array with rows and columns can help us to understand multiples, and this will help us with any set of multiples. This could be your 3's table, your 4's table. An array can help us in lots of different ways. So I hope this was helpful to you.